Good evening. It's now 5:30 p.m., Monday, May 13th, 2019, and I'm calling this meeting of the City Council of Paris to order. Invocation will be by Gene Anderson, and if Councilmember Stone will lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us today.
May we pray? Heavenly Father, we're indeed thankful for every blessing that you give us, and we know they all come from you. We pray for your guidance tonight as we conduct the city's business, Father, that you would show us the way you'd have us to go. And we thank you, Father, for our council members and their willingness to serve. And Father, we just ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. The Citizens Forum is now open. Anyone wishing to address the council, please step up, give us your name and address, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Williams. My address is 1205 West Center Street. I just called to complain about the street, the grass, and street signs that's needed in our community, especially flooding since the water has been so bad. I've got a certified letter saying that my grass on my property is high, and I just think really that they don't look at it no more. They just keep sending certified letters out. Certified letters cost quite a bit of money. So you don't make a phone call or nothing, just send a letter out. That kind of upsets me because I know that I keeps my property down. And another thing I had complained about, some of the street signs, stop signs, the names of the street, like when the telephone company and whoever comes and put up a pole, they takes the names of the streets down, never put them back up. These stop signs is very important. The metals on where the grass is growing, you can't even, some of the stop signs you can't even see. You know, and that's going to cause a very bad accident. So I think the city should be really focusing on getting the main things done instead of on this little petty stuff right now, because right now can't nobody mow no yard. The ground is so wet, you can't get a tractor or nothing in there. That's all.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to address the council?
Good evening, James O'Brien, 3150 Bonham Street. This is regards to item agenda, I believe number 12. On Monday, I'll try to be in within my 2 minutes. On Monday, May 6, 2019, the Planning and Zoning Commission was presented with an agenda item regarding the regulation of mobile food trucks. I acknowledge that the city staff, especially Mrs. Easton, has spent a significant amount of time drafting the proposed ordinances. However, no information was ever presented by any city representative regarding any specific cases where any of this proposed legislation is needed here in Paris, other than relating specifically to zoning. And what I mean by it, there were no specific or generalized instances presented supporting the need for this legislation whatsoever, or the regulation of these mobile food vendors. No police reports, no complaints, no code enforcement complaints. The information that was presented was based solely on the idea of what other cities are doing. Having said that, there was no information as to why those cities implemented their legislation or what problems they were having that caused them to implement that legislation. So why do we need rules if there is no problem? As many of you know, I've personally run into several problems with over-legislation and overzealous implementation with the city ordinances and its employees. I am almost certain that you will see another such case of over-enforcement in the near future that involves a several-decade-old, well-established, Paris-friendly business that the city is trying to shut down. I understand that the idea and the need for ordinances and legislation in order to try to preemptively protect the public health and safety, and the generalized idea that a rule cannot be enforced if it does not exist. The latter is not a reason to write an ordinance if it has not become a problem. That is, I don't write an ordinance just to have an ordinance or just because you believe that something may be a problem or has the potential to become a problem. Ordinance should be developed and implemented in a judicious manner once they become problematic, as long as it is not perceived imminent threat to the public health and safety. There must be a weighted measure of possibility versus probability. Furthermore, I feel that the City Council is to consider any legislation. Legislation whatsoever regarding the regulation of mobile food vendors. It must first and foremost address public health and safety. During the P&Z Commission's open discussion and final approval, several strikeouts were proposed. The most significant omission that concerns me the most is on page 4, section 6, subsection L. I won't quote all of that. You should have that, and you should be able to read that. But it's regarding in relation to 4 hours and restrooms. The members of the commission which voiced their opinion for the omission made very valid points. However, they offered no compromise or reasonable justification which addressed public health and safety. Ms. Easton felt based on her research that this subsection was necessary in order to provide health and safety to the public. I remind you of my previous statement that an ordinance or legislation is needed if it's needed. If there's been a problem or repeated problems, or if there's a significant likelihood that the omission of a regulation may lead to a problem with health and safety of the public. A government's duty is to protect its citizens from what they know and more so from what they don't know. So what does this have to do with subsection L? I'd like to remind you all the city council members, that you have the option to table items brought before you if you are unfamiliar with the information therein, in order to allow you more time to research the agenda items so that you can make an informed decision in the best interest of our citizens. I don't believe that justification for any legislation should be validated solely upon the basis of what others have done. We are unique here in Paris, and we are leaders, not followers. We do not need to follow what others have done in order for us to think independently on our own feet what is best for our citizens. I encourage you to research and understand what happens in the brick and mortar restaurant setting and why DSHS and other regulatory agencies have established and followed policies that they do. If you cannot answer why a restaurant employee must wash their hands in the restroom after they utilize the facilities and wash their hands in a separate food preparation sink, then you should not pass this legislation until you understand the significance of omitting subsection L. I do not agree with subsection L, and I think that it should be rewritten in a way that protects consumers and simultaneously does not hinder mobile food vendors. I believe that this can be done, and I believe that if you take the time and ask probing questions, you can find out how it can be done. This does not have to be an either-or situation. Before you vote, make sure that you fully understand exactly what you are voting for and what you're not voting for. Because this proposed legislation coincides and crosses other regulatory agencies, it's your duty to understand how this legislation may potentially be enforced or misenforced. By not understanding what you are voting for, you may inadvertently put Paris, Texas on the map for something that we don't want to be known for, such as a foodborne outbreak. I'm not saying don't create and pass the legislation. What I'm saying is that if you feel that you must pass a new ordinance, make sure it is the right one and it serves its primary purpose of protecting public safety, and that it can be only implemented within very narrow margins that limits one's ability to interpret its intent. Once again, if you don't understand the basis of hand-washing protocols or terms like listeria and norovirus, then you need to take a pause and understand the significance of your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. Anyone else wish to address the council? Seeing none, the Citizens Forum is now closed. The consent agenda is next. Any items on the consent agenda that any council members wish to pull for additional discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on that.
I make a motion.
To accept, okay.
To accept.
So all in favor? Good. Next item is number 10, conduct a public hearing, discuss and act on an ordinance considering the petition of Adam Bolton for a change in zoning from an agricultural district A to a two-family dwelling district 2F in the Newberry Edition, CB 167 Block A, Lot 1, located at 2805 Southeast 3rd Street. And let's go ahead
That'll be
with
me. I'll be pretty quick. This is a case that went to P&Z in one form or another twice. This is a request to convert this agricultural area to two-family dwelling or duplexes. Allows for the construction of a number of duplexes. The Planning and Zoning Commission did meet last week, did in fact take testimony from a number of persons, and by a vote of 6-1 recommended denial of this particular rezoning. Staff also recommends denial of the rezoning.
And this is not in accordance with the long-term.
Correct. This
plan.
is not consistent with the current zoning. It's not consistent with the future land use plan in either case. And the big issue that was brought up during the public hearings was there's a number of residences on 3 different sides. A final issue that they brought up a good bit was traffic on this road, 2-lane road that as you know, enters into the loop where there's been a number of accidents too. So
And Dr. Clifford, because of denial by P&Z, approval of this
Will take a
zoning change will
supermajority.
take 6
I mean,
votes.
it'd have to be unanimous, though. That'll be tough. Okay, any discussion on this? All right, I'll make a motion to deny this zoning change.
Public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm sorry. Open the public hearing, please. Anyone wishing to speak on this, come up and speak, please. Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing, and any further discussion, I'll make a motion to deny this application. All in favor? Good. Item number 11, conduct a public hearing, discuss and act on an ordinance considering the petition of the City of Paris, Texas to update zoning ordinance number 1710 of the City of Paris, Texas, specifically modifying regulations for residential dwellings, minimum square footage. Before we get started on this one, I noticed that both this and the food truck ordinance were all in the same ordinance.
Correct.
They'll be split in 2, correct?
correct. If one of them is approved and the other is not, then they would be divided out.
Okay. What you,
This is, in fact, there's 3. These next 3 items in a row are all items that came as a result of the comprehensive plan that the council approved last, I think, August. This is one of the recommendations, I don't recall which one it is, to address tiny houses one way or another. Right now, tiny houses are not prohibited or allowed specifically. They just exist. And in fact, the way our ordinance reads right now, they could actually be built anywhere in any residential zone. There's not a minimum square footage in any of our residential zones at this point. So there's kind of 3 parts to this. First part is we do establish, or we're recommending establishing zones, for in each zone, each of the 3 zones, SF1, 2, and 3, minimum sizes. SF1 would be 1,800 square feet, SF2 would be 1,500 square feet, SF3 would be 1,000 square feet. Minimum size for a home, unless with a special permit, special use permit, you could go as low as 700 square feet. We're calling these small homes instead of tiny houses because it just sounds better. There's 2 issues with tiny houses. One is that a lot of them today don't meet the building codes, and so people, we've actually had that here in Parrish where they'll literally buy a shed from Home Depot or someplace like that and try to convert it into a home. They don't meet the building code, so that's not an issue. It can be an issue, though, for them in certain neighborhoods. Neighborhoods need to have a certain integrity, a certain consistency. You don't want a giant house in a neighborhood full of little houses and vice versa, usually. And that's why most cities' zoning ordinances have minimum square footage, and that's why we're recommending minimum square footage. In this case, and whether you're a fan of tiny houses or not, I'm not particularly a fan. I think there are areas in town where they do make sense for us. And in fact, I've reported to you off and on for the last 2 years, we've been meeting for people, trying to encourage people to do infill projects in our community. One of the problems that they keep coming back with is that rents are too high to make it viable for them to come over here, even when we give them offer land in some cases for really cheap, for them to make a worthwhile project. Tiny houses is something several of them have suggested that if we could do, if y'all could allow that, and we've kind of frowned on it, but we can't tell them no as the ordinance exists now. But in some cases, there are areas in the community where that could make sense, whether it's a standalone house. The SUP process would provide that you can protect the neighborhood, and that's zoning is all about protecting existing neighborhoods and promoting new neighborhoods both, but especially protecting existing neighborhoods. That's what the last zoning case was about, the recommendation was about. And then the final part of this is that we're proposing another land use besides just small homes, but also a small home park. In that case, you can construct an entire neighborhood that would be just small homes, and it could be oriented a certain way. That would also be done through SUP. It could be done in light industrial or heavy industrial. In fact, it works almost just like the mobile home park does right now. Back about 3 or 4 years ago, a couple of y'all were on the council at the time, we used to have a situation where you would allow one-off, so to speak, of a mobile home to go into any kind of a neighborhood. That's not allowed anymore. They're allowed in certain areas. They're allowed in mobile home parks that have certain restrictions. This would work the same way. That's also attractive to some developers, some of the redevelopers that we've talked to. We've talked to one just within the last couple of months that, gee, if I could get, like 10 or 15 of these houses or 18 or 20 of these houses in a single neighborhood, serve them in the same way, have internal streets that don't meet the same standards as external streets that city streets would require, I could make an affordable kind of a project. So that's a long way of saying we don't want tiny houses just any old place, but we do think there is a place or places for them in our community. We recommended approval of this ordinance to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of it as well at their meeting last Monday. So again, tonight we recommend that following a public hearing.
Okay, let's open the public hearing on this. Anyone wanting to talk about this, come up, please, and address the council. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion.
I just see this, the 700 square foot is awfully small, but I see it as a good solution in a park setting for seniors, single adults, that sort of thing. Yeah. I think it would be
we've even seen
an added asset.
Yeah, I've even seen it. I don't know if it would work here, but I've seen it in infill in downtowns even, if it's done the right way. So, yeah.
I was at a realtors conference a couple years ago. There was about a 2-hour talk on a lot of, you see them a lot of them in Midland and Odessa, where there's a lot of people that stay out there for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, even, some physicians and stuff that come in and out of nursing, that kind of thing. So I think there's definitely needs to be some kind of, we don't want an entire city block in the middle of our SF1 areas obviously built, but there's, and like you said, the Home Depot buildings, those are pretty easy to get acquire and put in, and that's not but yeah, I agree. It's a needed.
Yeah, I looked at this. I didn't see any problems with it. I think it's they're moving in the right direction to anticipate the problem before it happens. So I think this is, I've seen a lot of these small houses are publicized, and yeah, it's time for us to make something so that we can accommodate them should someone want to build them here, and also protect the neighborhoods. I think this does a good job of it. Anybody else have a comment or discussion?
Any of those Any of those discussions that you had in neighborhoods residential neighborhoods, maybe as a revitalization of neighborhoods?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're after. We're hoping you can get enough. And that's kind of part of the problem. It's a great question. Part of it is two things. One is if they just build a house here, it's hard for them to make a profit off of it or even break even, because most people we're talking to are nonprofits. But it also doesn't have a big impact on a neighborhood if you just have one house here, one house here. So we're looking at enough of a mass, so to speak, that it makes a difference for the developer and for the neighborhood. Smaller houses gives us a better opportunity to do it. And it may not happen in a million years, but it's another tool that we can use to do exactly what you're talking about, is not just build a few houses, but to change an entire block or an entire neighborhood over time.
Would we also require like a plat where you can look and see how it's going to look in the neighborhood?
Yeah, these require site plans. So absolutely, that'd be part of the process. It'd be a site plan that so it meets all the requirements, and so that you got all the utilities and so forth and so on. So yes,
like
that is part of it.
A little neighborhood within a neighborhood?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. That's what we're hoping for.
As long as they're in an appropriate area and setting, I agree to it too. I just won't want one by some 2-story houses.
Right, right.
So-
Yeah, it needs to look like it belongs.
Yeah, this looks like it does a good job of making sure that doesn't happen. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve.
And we have a second. All in favor? Okay. And the next item, conduct a public hearing, discuss and act considering on an ordinance considering the petition of the City of Paris, Texas to update zoning ordinance number 1710 to the City of Paris, Texas, specifically establishing regulations for mobile food trucks and food truck parts/courts. And Ms. Easton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you're aware, food trucks have become a popular trend in our food service industry, and we have a number of them operating in our city limits. However, our zoning ordinance doesn't have a definition for that as a primary use or a secondary use. It doesn't really address food trucks at all. either on a temporary basis, like what we see at Collegiate and Lamar, or as a permanent land use for a food truck park or a food truck court, which a lot of communities have. The 2018 comp plan update last year recommends that we establish a means to appropriately manage food trucks. And so that's what this item is really trying to address. Dr. O'Brien mentioned, what's the problem? The problem that we see is we have food truck owners coming in wanting to set up on a vacant lot and open up for business as a permanent land use. As you know, development requires that they provide adequate parking, appropriate water and sewer and electrical connections and all of those things. And so we're trying to get some regulations in place that, one, identify the mobile food unit as what it is, defining it, a mobile unit, and also where those can go in relation to our zoning ordinance. So that's how this came about. The draft ordinance was first presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission in April, and it was tabled at that time. The commission asked that we meet with stakeholders and get their input on the draft. So on April 17th, staff met with a group of 10 food truck owners representing 8 different mobile food operations here in town. And we had a good discussion. They left the meeting with a good feeling. I think there were 4 main items that they wanted us to address. They wanted to just get clarification on how this would affect catering. They wanted to make sure school districts were included in the list of allowable places. They wanted clarification of the commercial liability insurance. We just had in there that they had to have it, and we didn't have the amounts, and so they wanted us to add what specifically would be required for the permit. And then they wanted clarification to the restroom requirement. And so this was another thing Dr. O'Brien brought up that we talked about extensively. Originally, we just said that for a temporary operation site, you had to identify a restroom where the employees or the operators of the mobile food unit would have access to a restroom. They don't have to have their own on site necessarily, but it has to be within walking distance. So if they're set up and serving food and they need to go to a restroom, they have permission to do so. So at the time that they apply for the permit, it would identify, say the Lamar and Collegiate, maybe it's the bank or the gym or the gas station across the street. It's somewhere, but they have identified an available restroom for their employees. That was the intent of that original language. After our stakeholder meeting, we went with a 4-hour requirement. So any site where they would be operating for 4 hours or more, they would have to identify that restroom. And then at the most recent version, that whole restroom requirement has been removed. So I think that's what he was speaking primarily about. But back to our meeting, we met with stakeholders on April 17th. We came up with a good draft. We presented it to Planning and Zoning at the May meeting last week, and they had 4 additional comments. I think they removed the 4 items that were identified in your memo. And so this final draft is what we're proposing to you as a good baseline to establish some food truck regulations in our city. The ordinance will establish a permitting and inspection process, and it will set the hours of operation and then limit the temporary operations to retail, commercial, and industrial areas. It also includes development requirements for the food truck park.
On the permitting and inspecting, it says the building official, is a building inspector going to be required to inspect these mobile vans?
No,
That's what it says.
Well, permitting comes through the building department, and so he will make sure that the locations identified are either general retail or commercial or industrial, like the ordinance requires.
But he's not going to be inspecting the mobile vehicle for
No, he will make
building
sure that they
requirements.
don't have any, his primary concern is plumbing. We need to make sure that they're truly staying mobile and they're not illegally attaching to city plumbing or anything like that. But he won't be required to do the inspections on a yearly basis. He'll accept the permit, review the permit for compliance with this ordinance, and the fire marshal will do the majority of.
Okay, and regarding the fire marshal's inspection, I'm all for safety and everything, and it seems reasonable to have fire extinguishers and basic protections for propane and things like that. But it can get to the point where we get very stringent enforcement, and then we get people out of compliance, and then we chase people off, and I don't want to do that. Is this, what sort of fire inspection is we're going to require on this ordinance?
My understanding is he's enforcing the fire code as far as distances around gas tanks. Clyde's here, he can answer any specific questions, but separation of the building, so if you have an issue in one, it doesn't jump over and cause a fire in the other. That's sort of established in the fire code. However, the building code, ICC has recognized that food trucks are a growing use in, all across the country, and they've actually begun to draft a new section of building code, if you will, that will address food trucks specifically. So in the next few years, we may actually have a whole section of code that applies to food trucks.
That's what I was wondering, because if we apply the city codes to the food trucks, it's going to be, if we apply them and apply them accurately, it may ultimately discourage people and needlessly and chase people off that were having viable businesses. So I'm a little concerned about the inspection process and how it's going to impact. I'm not even sure that the owners of the trucks have completely considered this as well.
Well, I know they're already doing this in many other communities. A lot of our surrounding cities already have food truck ordinances in place. And in fact, when I met with the stakeholders, they weren't opposed to these regulations because they're already doing it in many other communities. So it's just, what do we need here in Paris? And that's what we tried to focus our discussion on. As far as the permit, the intent was to simplify it so that they could come in for an annual permit, get one inspection, and then they don't have to mess with us again for a year. As long as they have their annual inspection and they're issued a permit, if they operate at the fairgrounds, if they operate at a city event, anytime that they are going to be open for business in the city limits, we don't have to go out and check their food truck. We know that they've passed for it and they're good for 12 months. Right now, we do an inspection at the fairgrounds every time, once a year for the fair, and then any city event. Our fire marshal has to go out and do an inspection. So this would somewhat streamline the process. It would be a once-a-year permit.
But when they change locations, wouldn't that change things? You already talked about how close together they could be or couldn't be. And so how could they move them? Will they have to tell you all the locations they're going to be at in the coming year?
That's exactly right. They list them on the permit application, the locations that they intend to set up for temporary
And what
operations.
if somebody has a party and hires one on 2 months' notice?
If they get 2 months, did you say 2 months?
Yeah, or 1 month notice.
They can call and add any time. All they have to say is, hey, we're now going to be operating at Northmore ISD. Or, we're not trying to make it an impossible process. We can amend those locations throughout the year as they come up.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't we have the public hearing first, and then we'll have more discussion on this. And I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to this, please come up. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I'm going to open this wide open for the council.
On the vendors, what is the time frame of closing it at night? Because if you have, I know noise control can be an issue. Some vendors may have a generator silencer, some not. But if they stay open real late, how will that affect the people that live in that area? And I'm concerned with the trash receptacles, making sure that the vendor's house to be able to put stuff wherever, and sanitation-wise, as far as, hand washing and that type of thing. Because I don't know a lot about this, so that's why I would have concerns about the noise level as well.
Okay, we don't specifically address the maximum noise level here because that's already covered in other ordinances. So we try not to duplicate that requirement. If they're in excess of what's already prohibited, then that's in violation of a separate ordinance. As far as the time, the original draft didn't have a specific time of operations. That came about because the original draft and what many places do, they make food trucks a secondary operation to whatever the primary use is of the property. So if the primary business is closed, a food truck can't set up on the property and be open. That came up at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last week. There were some concerns that some of the food trucks in town utilize parking lots at a business that it's closed, and they didn't want to affect those owners. So these were recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission to accommodate. I think it's early morning, 7:30, because we do have a few vendors who serve breakfast. So it was to accommodate those. And then again, the zoning districts, it has to be a retail, a commercial, or a light industrial zoning district, so it wouldn't be in a residential neighborhood. That said, we do have areas of town where there's single-family residential homes in a commercial district, so that could be a concern.
I know in my district last summer, I saw in a neighborhood where somebody had set up like a food truck, and I'm not sure if it was legal or not. So how do you know the ones are legal and the ones are not? Because it didn't look like it as far as, but.
Well, right now I don't have a permit process, so I don't, it's not illegal from our department. Now, it's supposed to be parked on private property, and then it's supposed to have a health inspection. So you can see, if they have their health inspection, they'll have that, the letter sticker.
What all does a health inspection involve, and what Dr. O'Brien was talking about as far as hand washing and foodborne pathogens? Because that's my biggest concern, that I think the health of the people on the food trucks.
I can't recall all the requirements. I know that they do require hot and cold water for hand washing. John, do you remember any?
Yeah, hot and cold water, soapy water, so they can wash their hands. And then their biggest thing beyond that is food preparation. You have to prepare the food there, temperatures of food, things like that. Same kind of things they do in a brick and mortar restaurant. So it's not terribly different from that perspective.
So they'll have like an A, B, or C rating like you see in the restaurant, so.
Or a fail.
That should, and that was a concern of mine as well, but as long as you have the inspection from the health department, I mean, that should be already in there.
Yeah, it should be on their
And they
window.
have to have that to be permitted, they have to be health inspected to be permitted.
Yes, they'll have to have that as a part of our process too. That's exactly right.
That and the fire code is all that's in place
So
right now.
the subsection L would be restating, in my opinion, restating what the health department's already stated, that they have to have hot and cold water. It's not?
Well, they don't have to go. They have to have a bathroom.
They don't have to have a bathroom.
Our deal was they ought to at least have a bathroom at the gas station next door. So that's the difference. And I specifically asked them, no, they don't require a bathroom. They just require the water to wash your hands.
The mayor and I were both at the first planning and zoning meeting in April where this was on the agenda, and a vendor was present and expressed concern, and I think the staff and the commissioners were very open to the suggestion of getting as many vendors as possible together, and I'm glad to see that 10 attended.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct? That's I think a great representation. Do you have a number of how many are operating currently in town?
There were 8. 8 of those 10. There were 8 food trucks represented by the 10 people who were at the meeting.
Okay.
And Mr. Early was there and very involved in the discussion. We met for over an hour, and at one point in the meeting, I even said, "Is anybody opposed to this?" And they said no. I mean, we were very open.
Okay.
So it was a productive meeting, and I think that they understand where we're coming from too.
Thank you. And then does the ordinance represent, as it's written, what the planning and zoning approved?
Yes.
Okay.
In May, from last week's meeting, that's what's in the proposed ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
Can you, I want to clarify your concern,
Sure.
So your concern was sanitation, hand washing, and then also food preparation and everything, correct?
No.
And restroom.
Mine specifically is regarding after elimination. If you're going to be in an area in a hot kitchen for 4 hours or longer, consuming water, and have to use the facilities, either go to the bathroom one way or another, you're going to need a place to wash your hands. And there is a reason that it is set up in a brick and mortar building that you wash your hands in the restroom, and then you wash your hands in a separate facility specifically for food preparation and handling. So I want you to think about everything that goes on inside of a restaurant and the differences and those significant differences that allow a loophole for infectious disease to occur. Do I think that as far as the Section L was required, and if you need a copy of it, I'm sure Carla has one, that we have a brick and mortar separate sexes? No, I don't think that. That's why I don't agree with Section L. But I do agree that there needs to be some compromise to allow these vendors to set up reasonably, have a facility to be able to use the restroom versus closing a magic curtain in the back by the sink and eliminating, especially for men, because we all know that can happen, quickly washing their hands and boom. That will happen. It will happen. Okay? It may not result in a disease outbreak, but it may. That's one thing I want to think about. Do I think we need brick and mortar, ADA accessible bathroom nearby? No, I don't. But I think there can be a compromise. That's specifically my concern, is just going to the bathroom, washing your hands.
One other thing I would bring up, we all think got the same email from someone suggesting that the generators, about half of them have the mufflers, the sound suppression units, and about half of them don't. I looked it up on Amazon. It's like $38. Even if it didn't exceed the sound requirements, it doesn't seem unreasonable to say, hey, I think if you're going to run a generator, because they tend to make a lot of noise, and as Ms. Stone mentioned, maybe it doesn't exceed, or maybe it does. You may not be out there with a microphone testing the decibels either. So it would seem reasonable to me to, at a minimum, require all the generators to have some sort of a sound muffling device on
Have to have
it.
a muffler.
There's no downside to that I see, and it wouldn't discourage anything. Again, my concern is discouraging people from a business that they're making money off of and providing a service to Paris, and that's what I don't want to lose by over-regulating it.
Yes, sir.
What is the code for the sound
I do
outside
not
of this
recall.
agreement?
I apologize. I do not know
No,
that off
neither.
the top of my head. I'd have to look. I'd be happy to report back to you.
Well, the email that concerned seemed pretty reasonable, and he suggested that even some of the truck owners that had mufflers were annoyed because the truck right next to them didn't, and their patrons were having to listen to it. So that's one little minor thing, but I'll throw that out there too.
I find this interesting. I always thought the whole purpose of food trucks was that it's very mobile. They could pop up here, they could pop up there, and now it looks like we're saying you can only be in this little area, or you can be here, or you can be there. What happens if Festival of Pumpkins or whatever happens downtown wants to have a bunch of food trucks? They can't be downtown because it's a public street?
Sure they can.
Oh, they can?
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
Oh, okay. I thought I read in here that you couldn't be on a public street.
Not for festivals and events and so forth.
Oh, okay.
Private catering as well,
Right,
correct?
right.
So if someone had a party or an event at their home, you could hire them to come and cater the event. They could park out in the driveway, right?
As long as they're not
Within that,
a
as long as
nuisance
they
to
don't
the
stay past 11 p.m. or they don't get out of the sound ordinance, right?
Correct.
Well, they were all in favor of it, right?
It was 6-1. Dr. O'Brien voted no.
I mean, the vendors.
Oh, they were. Yeah,
I certainly understand his concerns, but the food truck vendors were all in favor.
My understanding.
How many food truck vendors do we have?
I don't know. We'll know if we pass this,
I
and
was
they all have to get
surprised to
permitted.
hear that we had 10.
Yeah.
I thought we had like 4.
We sent an invitation to all the ones that at least have operated at the farmers market or at our festivals, the ones that we know of. And even at that meeting, one of the things that they came up with, kind of in a response to the restroom issue, was that they felt it would be a good idea for them to create a food truck association, and that way they could deal with, say, if they need a permission letter from a property owner, it could come from the food truck association, and they would all be members. And then I told them that we as the city would accept, whatever permission letters. Anyway, it was they were looking for ways to come together as an organization too, and make sure they can meet whatever we're asking them to meet.
Why would a food truck that's a mobile restaurant, why would they want to park somewhere permanently?
Because they have a high traffic, highly visible corner here in Paris that allows them to do so. I don't know. Yeah. Our definition says that if they're operating for 60 minutes at any location, then this ordinance applies, or any or 2 30-minute stretches. So if you have somebody that's truly mobile, like an ice cream truck, I mean that's not addressed with this ordinance. A catering they asked that we put the catering clause in there because they wanted clarification. So we put something in that basically says you can't block driveways or be a nuisance to the neighbor during that event. But that, as far as why would they want to set up, I think it's
Permanently.
Well, permanently, you can't do that unless you're in a food truck park. Do you mean on a vacant lot?
Well, I mean, there was an issue that, you had said. that
As a
somebody-
starter, I'm sorry, I'm just
Somebody
following.
would come in and wanted to be on a permanent spot.
Because they can purchase a food truck
And it's cheaper
for
than
less
building a
than
restaurant.
building a restaurant and installing, building the parking lot, the lighting, the landscaping, all of the things that are required that goes along with the regular development. It's a way for them to get started without having to do all of the other development requirements. We want to encourage that, but we want to encourage it on a temporary location basis, not as a permanent,
Yeah, I don't
Lo-
think we want that on a permanent basis. No, food trucks should be temporary. I don't
But
think
this
they-
ordinance also sets up criteria for a food truck park,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And it's required to have a permanent
That's right.
bathroom.
They would have to submit a site plan, and they would have to make sure that they have a permanent restroom facility, permanent water and sewer hookups, and electricity, all of those things, because it's like a real development at that point. And that's what this ordinance does, is establishes the food truck court as a primary land use, and then they can develop it per this ordinance with all of the things that are required for pretty much a brick and mortar restaurant.
Didn't they have one on Clarksville Street?
They tried it. That guy came in and he had a vision, but he needed to start at very low cost, no cost. We didn't have any regulations in place at the time. We wanted to support his efforts, but again, I think the food truck market is either you're temporary and you go to the places that are high traffic and you make a lot of money that way, or you go to a place that has kind of created that destination. It's eclectic, it's cool, you've got bands, you've got outdoor things happening, and so it's a destination and people come to you. That place wasn't really either, and so it wasn't successful.
Is there any kind of language we could replace the L with that would maybe, I'm gonna reach out on the attorney, because I don't know. I'm thinking the health standards of the health department or something, says that they have to wash their hands in a restroom wherever they go, and they have to wash their hands, and they need to figure that out. If their restroom's a mile down the road and their truck's at a location that they've permitted to be there, and they need to go use the restroom, they're going to have to find their own transport, or they have to have some kind of ways and means of doing that. I don't know if there's some language we could put in there to alleviate that. I see his concern. I think it's something that we need to.
I'd be happy to give it a try, but we talked at length about the restroom required. I'm not really sure where to go. I mean, this attempt was basically making them provide a location that they had access to, and that was it. They didn't, it's just tell us that you have permission to a facility and show it on your permit. I can take a stab at it. I don't really know where to go from there, quite honestly, but I can try.
They have to wash their hands.
I mean, they have.
That's
I
past
think
us.
Our recommendation would be our original recommendation,
Yeah.
which is have them go across the street to the gas station. And that's on them to identify a bathroom that they can go to, so.
Dr. O'Brien suggested a compromise. What would that be?
That's a good question. I think if you look around farther north, what some other states have done, from Washington to Iowa, they have come up with some pretty good compromises, especially with your question regarding to downtown festivals, or if they're going to be in an area for an event for more than 4 hours. I don't see any reason there couldn't be an event where you could have a accessory Class C motorhome that has a bathroom inside of it, which would violate the brick and mortar requirement for a bathroom, or even just having a porta potty with a hand washing station, approved hand washing station. This is from I think this is from Weld County. I think it's in Washington, something similar to that. There's many different examples for temporary hand washing. So temporary food vendor, temporary restroom, permanent solution. That's kind of my thought.
How were the vendors as far, I mean, that sounds pretty reasonable. What were their opinions on that?
Well, again, the temporary restroom, on a temporary site, they deliver the temporary restroom, the porta potty, and it stays there. It stays there until somebody else. You see those on construction sites. That would make every operating corner have a temporary restroom on it, and I don't know that that's the look that we want, or the operation that we want. Or if they would even prefer a a portable restroom over the brick and mortar that's available to them. I don't know that. We didn't address that concept in our meeting.
Or we just have to trust them to obey health department regulations and do the right thing and,
Yeah.
and
Now, the one that we came up with in the stakeholder meeting, that's when we added the 4 hours. Originally, we just said, if you're going to operate on a temporary site, you got to provide a restroom. The compromise with the food truck owners was the 4-hour requirement. So basically, if you're going to pull up and just serve for an hour at lunchtime, you don't have to provide that restroom location. But anywhere you plan to be all day long, or for 4 hours or more, we felt that identification of a facility was needed and appropriate. So that's how we got to the language that was proposed to the Planning and Zoning Commission last week, but that has since been removed from the ordinance.
I'm kind of torn on this because I see Dr. O'Brien's point, but on the other hand, I'm really not wanting to pass regulations that encumber people and discourage them from bringing these businesses and from making a living off of them.
I see your, I'm more on the health standards that the health department already has that installed, and they're gonna be inspected by the health department, they're gonna be inspected by the city, and then we're gonna regulate them a whole lot more than they've ever been regulated. So that's, you know, I think you gotta,
The right direction.
I think we're a whole lot better off than where we were. In my opinion, I think you passed the way it's written, and
I think a positive is that now that there is registration fee and tabulations, we would know how many we have, and we would know the places they are going to be, and they can change that at any time. I think that's good flexibility. I support it.
Would y'all want a requirement for a muffler on the generators as an addition to as it's written here or not?
Yeah, I
I think
would.
it's a good
I
idea.
think so.
Okay,
I think
okay.
so.
and they just need to have a muffler.
Yeah, just something. We won't have any requirement on it, just muffle the sound a little. It
Silencer.
doesn't cost
Or it
anything.
needs to stay within the whatever code we have already. Try not to make another rule. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to pass it, adding in, we need to stay within code on the noise levels, which I think we've got
Well,
in there.
we got to do that anyway, but the question is, do you want to require a
Mufflers.
$35 muffler on it as a requirement? So I don't think it's a bad idea.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a one-time purchase. They got to pay $50 every year for the license anyway, but this is a one-time purchase. I'd be for putting that in there to require a muffler on the generators with no specifics other than at a minimum, it must comply with the existing sound ordinances. Okay, so that's the motion.
I'll make
Okay.
the motion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Easton. And next is item number 13, correct? Conduct a public hearing, discuss and act on an ordinance considering the petition of the City of Paris, Texas to update the subdivision regulations of the City of Paris, Texas, specifically establishing requirements for pedestrian sidewalks.
Thank you again. This item is in response to 3 recommendations in the comprehensive plan. The subdivision regulations are our guiding documents for all development and redevelopment in the city and in the ETJ. And in order to ensure that sidewalks are either constructed or reconstructed with new development or redevelopment in our city, we need something in there that requires it. Right now, there's nothing in the subdivision regulations regarding sidewalks. This is important for the city to be in compliance with our ADA. In 2016, we did a self-evaluation and a transition plan, which identifies all of our deficiencies with respect to the ADA, and then sets a plan for coming into compliance. One of the things identified is that we don't have any sidewalk requirements, so that when someone rebuilds and they have a broken or missing sidewalk along their frontage, there's nothing that says that they have to replace it. We certainly encourage those with all of our projects, but it's not in the document as a requirement. So it's important to pass something that will require that, so that as these projects come along, we're moving in the right direction for our ADA and also being in compliance with our transition plan. That's all. Do you have any questions, or is there anything I can specifically address?
once again, I'm very much in favor of sidewalks and would love to see them. My fear is that there's not very many new developments that come to Paris, and a lot of them build outside the city limits just for this reason, so they don't have to comply with the city codes. My fear is this will discourage development rather than encourage it, and numerous neighborhoods have no sidewalks, and that's not going to change. So I want to be careful about this. I mean, we need to think about it. But it's not a vote of whether we're in favor of sidewalks or not. Obviously, everybody's in favor of sidewalks, but we need to discuss and think about whether or not this is a good idea, wouldn't discourage development. And that's the reason I'll throw it out there, and we'll have a little discussion on that. Let's get the public hearing out of the way. Open the public hearing right now. Anyone wishing to have a comment, come up and address the council, please.
James O'Brien again, 3150 Bonham Street. This is kind of on a side note. I'll let you know that I agree with the mayor's sentiment as a business owner and potential and developer, but I did vote for it. Part of the reason was if you look at the work that's being done now by TxDOT at Collegiate in Clarksville, there was a man last week when we had the storms that I saw him sit through 2 traffic lights out there on the little island, and this is somewhat related to it. While lightning was being struck, he couldn't cross the street while there was a sidewalk. There was no button. He couldn't push the button for the light to cycle. I also voted for this for the 2 individuals that live in my neighborhood, one with cerebral palsy and one confined to a wheelchair where there is no sidewalk. He goes down the street with a orange construction vest on the back of his wheelchair. We're talking about $5 a square foot for concrete, okay? If you want to be a developer and be a part of this community and truly convince people that you're a part of the community, you can find $5 a square foot to put in a sidewalk. It's not just about you, but you'll think differently when you don't have your legs and you're that man in that wheelchair that can't push a button. Thank you.
Chad Lindsay, 1050 Southeast 29th. I wanted to add in, I felt a lot like you did, but I did vote for this, and the main reason was, and correct me if I'm wrong on how I word this, but the developers, if they buy a big chunk of land and say, hey, I'm going to develop this, they're not instantly required to build a huge grid of sidewalks. They can actually build these sidewalks when they build a house. So if they build a house, build a sidewalk, build another house, they're not requiring a whole network of sidewalks right off the bat. So that kind of changed my mind on the issue a little bit.
I noticed the vote was 4-3 on this, so I guess there still was some dissension within P&Z itself on this. Okay. All right, anyone else wanting to talk to the council, please come forward. All right, I'll close the public hearing, and I'm going to throw this wide open again for discussion on the council.
Well, I think that there's certain neighborhoods that need to have sidewalks. I happen to live in one because I live on a very, very busy street. Now, there's other people who live in charming little secluded neighborhoods where they may not have sidewalks and they can walk in the street. I mean, because there's not a lot of traffic. You know, I think I would be leaning towards an area, you know, I'd be leaning towards taking into consideration where the housing is going to be.
You know, you mentioned something too. One thing I wanted to bring up also. Obviously, sidewalks are important, and they're important to the city, and yet we still have main streets with enormous traffic, foot traffic on them from businesses, Lamar and Clarksville. There are significant parts of those streets that don't have sidewalks, and it seems to me, I mean, this is an unrelated thing, I guess, but the city, if the city's concerned about sidewalks, maybe we should put sidewalks on the known high foot traffic areas as a city, and then at least that way, that would be a way toward getting more toward ADA compliance, because you put the sidewalks where the most foot traffic is, you've eliminated part of the problem. But that's a separate item, so maybe I shouldn't go there tonight.
Well, I will just jump in real quickly because that's a really good point, and that is If you've noticed, on all the street projects, almost all the street projects we've done, we didn't do it on the street that goes in front of Carla's house because she lives there. But on 3rd Street, 7th Street, we have put those sidewalks back. So that is what we're doing, and that is something we're required to do by ADA. So when we do those streets, we are putting those back in. So
But
it just
there-
takes a long
there's-
time.
yeah, there's always-
because it hasn't been done for years
There's
and
all
years
the
and years
streets
and
that
years.
have, a couple of miles of no sidewalks and a significant
What will
amount
this,
of foot
what will
traffic.
this cartel on, let's say, neighborhoods, established neighborhoods, and maybe they're tearing a house down and rebuilding a home?
If it's an established neighborhood that doesn't have any sidewalks throughout it, then we wouldn't have them build the sidewalk across the frontage of a single lot. However, there's a lot of, especially closer to downtown, or at least the 12 blocks within downtown, that have sidewalks that are just covered up. They're overgrown, or they're broken, or they're missing. And that was actually part of our ADA inventory that was done in 2016. It's a part of that transition plan. We had guys go out and survey all of the existing sidewalks. So we have a pretty good idea of where the old sidewalks are. They're closer into town. They're not in Johnson Woods or some of the established neighborhoods. So if we do, someone were to pull a permit for a single vacant lot in a, pretty much built out neighborhood, they wouldn't have to build a sidewalk because it wouldn't connect to anything, and we wouldn't have a reason to ever connect
Could
it
a
to anything.
sidewalk also be, could it be constituted maybe as, we have a bike lane in Johnson Woods that kind of, that's our sidewalk.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can, does that, or, I'm not sure on the ADA stuff, that's what I'm asking.
I'm not a real fan of those because they're difficult to meet ADA. Once you put pedestrians in the street, the cross slope of the street is often too steep to meet what's required by ADA. Plus, you've got the intersections. A lot of times people park in them. So, I find that the bike lane through Johnson Woods sometimes isn't as helpful as it needs to be because there's people parked in it. So you have to go in the middle of the street anyway. So as far as, pedestrian accommodation, you want a separate sidewalk. But throughout, that's a good solution through an existing neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks, but you want some sort of path. For new development, though, that's the perfect opportunity to put it in the right of way behind the curb, and still accommodate pedestrians.
Anybody else have anything they want to say?
Well, I think if there's prime property within the city and demand for it, that a developer will build in the city of Paris, whether we require sidewalks or not. I tend to agree with Dr. O'Brien that not only for disabled people, children getting on and off a bus.
Anything else?
Yeah, one of the streets in my district is very busy, a lot of residential, and you literally have to watch out for kids because there's not sidewalks. I mean, they have to ride their bikes in the streets. So, I'm for the sidewalks on any new development because it's a safety issue to an extent.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I'm completely for sidewalks. I'm just worried that a new development might just choose to put it outside the city if we put too many restrictions on them. But my fear is I'm not going to see any change significantly in the number of sidewalks in this city, whether we pass this or not, because the large percentage of the city does not have sidewalks. So only in the next 100 years, I guess, maybe there'd be a change. But anyway, it is what it is. So, any other questions or comments?
Dr.
Anybody
Clifford,
wanna
might I
make-
point out one
Oh,
more?
yeah, please.
Might I point out might I point out one thing? We did add a note that the sidewalks, while they are a requirement of the development, that the developer has an option to submit a site plan that identifies where the sidewalks will go, and note on the plat that they can be built by the developer. So they could be built with the home construction instead of upfront. That way they don't get broken, between the time that the streets and everything is completed.
Yeah.
So.
That makes sense.
That was done in my mother's development of Primrose. She has bought a vacant lot next to her. No sidewalk is there. She wasn't required when she bought that lot to put the sidewalk in. Her home, when she built it, has a sidewalk that ends on either side.
Yeah.
There's 2 vacant lots next to her that have just been bought. We're hoping that the sidewalks will connect, but
That is the downside of doing it that way, is sometimes you are left with gaps, but over time they get filled in and you have a continuous walk.
in 20 years, I've gotten used to it, the sidewalk that goes nowhere.
Okay, any more discussion?
I'll make the motion to approve the amendment to the subdivision regulations regarding construction of sidewalks.
Got a motion to approve and got a second. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Passes. And item number 14, discuss and act on a resolution authorizing the grant application from the Texas Department of Agriculture Community Development Block Grant FAST Program, which provides funds for the purchase of fire and ambulance service vehicle.
And I'll do this one real quickly, I hope. We've recently become eligible for a FAST grant. FAST stands for something about fire apparatus, something, but it's potentially free money. We can get up to $500,000 to purchase a replacement fire engine. This fire engine would go at station number 3. Station number 3 currently has a 2010 engine. It's not the best in the world. We bought it inexpensively, and it certainly was worth what we paid. It served its purpose. It needs to be replaced. This is an opportunity to replace it more quickly than we otherwise might have been able to do so. Total price that we're guessing for the entire apparatus is about $770,000. So there will be a significant portion that the city will have to pay. That would be included in next year's budget, or perhaps the year after next, depending on how timing goes. But we certainly recommend approval of this opportunity to get $500,000 in free money from Community Development Block Grant.
Does anybody not want to apply for $500,000 of free money? Okay. Okay. I'll entertain a motion on this unless somebody has a discussion.
Second.
You making a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, and we already had the second, so, okay. All in favor? Thanks.
Thank you.
That passed. All right. Item number 15, the council will consider and take action with respect to adopting a resolution canvassing the May 4th, 2019 hotel occupancy tax election. This is just a formality, is it not?
Correct.
So we just have to canvass this special election as required by state law. Any discussion? I make a motion, we approve the resolution canvassing the results for the special election.
Second.
All in favor? Good. Item number 16, another one, discuss and act on a resolution acknowledging the results of prior council action, declaring candidates as elected to office for council districts 4, 5, and 7 as a result of having been unopposed for election to office, declaring the terms of office, making other provisions, findings and provisions related to the subject, and providing an effective date. Another rubber stamp thing here we need to do to satisfy state law. Any discussion on it? I make a motion that we acknowledge the results of, this motion. I'm not going to read it again. Billy, a second. All in favor? Thank you. And another one, issuance of certificate of election, administer statement of elected officer to council members, and administer oath of office to newly elected council members. Since none of us are newly elected, do we still have to do that?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
You're elected because no one ran against you, but you're still elected. Do y'all want to do it right there, or do you want to? Let's do it right here.
It's right here, it's fine.
Okay. All right, if you three will raise your right hands. Repeat after me. I state your names. Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties
execute the duties
of office of City Council
of office of City
of
Council
the City of Paris,
of the City of Paris,
State of Texas,
State of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United States
laws of the United
and of
States,
this state and charter
and of this state and charter
and ordinances of this city.
and ordinances of this city.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I have not directly
that I have not directly
nor indirectly
nor indirectly
paid, offered,
paid, offered,
or promised to pay,
or promised to
contributed,
contribute,
nor promised to contribute any money
promised to contribute any money
or valuable thing,
or valuable
or promised any public office
or promised any public office
or employment
or employment
as a reward for the giving
as a reward for the giving
or withholding a vote
or withholding a vote
at the election at which I was elected.
at the election for which I was elected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay. I'm gonna come down here and have everybody. see, I've got two places for you to sign. Right here.
I'm sorry, here?
Right here.
Okay.
And then
not
the
right.
next page.
no
I always
good.
give you these bad pens. Okay, and there's one more, right there, officer's signature. Thank you very much.
Give you the good one back.
Okay, I've got to do Linda's too. Right here,
All right.
right there, Affiant.
Thank you.
And one more. Right here.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Right here, Linda.
Wait, that's for this.
That's your certificate. With your gold seal.
Oh, how nice.
Hey, right here.
Did I get in one of those last time?
Yes.
Did I? I wonder where I put it. That's real pretty, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, you done, Janice?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. All right, next is election of mayor. Going to open the floor up for nominations for mayor. Okay, you're the only one raising your hand.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm picking you, yeah.
okay. I'd like to nominate Steve to serve another term as mayor. When he comes to meetings, he's always prepared. He respects everyone. And I think that he would really make another good one. The city's moving forward. We're making small steps that we need to make for the next generation. And he's a big part of it.
All right, any other nominations? No more nominations? Okay. All right, let's have a vote. Who wants?
I nominate Steve.
Okay,
Second.
okay. In favor? Good, okay. Well, thank you. Now we're going to move on to Mayor Pro Tem, and Linda raised her hand. She wanted to make a nomination.
I'd like to nominate Paula Portugal as Mayor Pro Tem. I think Paula has done an exceptional job these last couple of years, and I think she's devoted a lot of time and a lot of effort, and she certainly has the best interest of our city at heart. And I would consider it an honor if you would run for Mayor Pro Tem, Paula.
Thank you, absolutely.
Any other nominations? Well, this is easy. I want to say I agree. I think Paula's done an excellent job, and
Good
I've been
job.
working with her pretty closely on a lot of things, and I think she'd do a great job. And before we take this vote, I just want to say publicly, this is the best council I've ever worked on, and that's nothing against anybody else. Everybody on this council wants to do the right thing for this city, and we all have different perspectives. You know, Clayton's got some expertise, Paula's got some expertise, Ms. Stone's got a perspective, Mr. Tornado. You know, it's been wonderful to serve on it. So, anyway, all in favor of Paula for Mayor Pro Tem? Okay. Here we go. And item number 19, convene into executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employees as follows: annual evaluation of the municipal judge and annual evaluation of the city attorney. So we're going into executive, and we're going to talk first, and then we'll call the employee in. We'll call y'all in as soon as
Mayor,
we're
will
ready.
you state the time?
It is now 6:38, and we're going into executive. It is now 8:09, and we are out of executive sessions. As per the agenda, we did our annual evaluation of the municipal judge and the city attorney, and there was no action. Item number 21, any future events for city council? Yes, sir.
We keep talking about having a special meeting with some of our issues. Can we all get together and let's go ahead and do that? I mean, I think it'd really help everybody. That's just my opinion.
Y'all name it, I'll figure it, I'll get there somehow.
Yeah,
If y'all put the cell phone in the middle of the table with a speaker or something, I'll be
Yeah.
there.
Anytime with me, I'm retired. Just tell me when and where.
Is it better during the week, John?
Oh, we'll take you whenever we can get you.
What about it?
Yeah, we've tried every day of the week but Sunday so far. I mean, we've tried since October.
What about like nighttime, like after this meeting or before?
Oh.
That's just what I want. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it like on an off Monday, you know, a third Monday. Not first Monday, because you got P and Z. Monday or Thursday, something like that.
Thursdays aren't good for Linda.
I'll be willing to take off work.
Okay.
I would be willing to take off work. I mean, that's how important it is to
Yeah,
me,
we could do
because
it, we could do it, I mean, we could do it at normal, regular time on a Monday,
Why don't we shoot for that
at
then? That
5
sounds good.
o'clock on a Monday?
5:30.
5:30 or something like that, or if people can make it at
Is
5,
that
we'll
late
start
enough,
at
that's late
5.
enough for you, isn't it? Or do you have to leave early to come over here for this?
Pardon? Oh, no, I don't. I'm back in town by 4.
Okay.
So we could do a 4 o'clock?
Yeah,
On
I
a
could be
Monday,
here
I
at 4,
can, but I don't know if
4:30.
anybody else can.
That's fine.
I can be here at 4, 4:30. I mean, you know,
Well, we'll schedule.
you gonna feed
Stone,
us?
Do you, Ms. Stone, would that be a problem for you, 4 or 4:30?
Just let me know because my granddaughter's still in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
So I'm kind of working with whatever.
Yeah.
I don't plan a whole lot right now, so just
Yeah,
let me know.
agree.
Yeah,
Right
day
now,
by
fun.
day.
Let's shoot for a third Monday. I think that's a good idea.
Third Monday in June,
17th.
June 17th.
Before, let me check right now, make sure I don't have a conflict. My
I'll put it
phone
on my
knows.
calendar.
China.
The
June
third Monday.
17th, okay.
Okay. That way I can plan.
June 17th. 4 o'clock.
King Lee, that will be all right with me.
Okay, and
At
location.
4?
June 17th at 4, it looks like I can
And
be
location.
there.
It's 4 o'clock, tell me.
Yeah.
4 o'clock, okay.
I mean, you know how we are. We're chatties. We're chatty
I'm
Cathy,
gonna
so.
send out an email tomorrow
Yeah,
to
that would be
remind
good.
everybody.
We do it in here?
That'll be good.
We
Here,
do it in
John?
here?
Do you wanna do it
Or
here?
at the,
Maybe, we'll either do it at the library or the police station.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Well,
Like-
okay.
Likely I'll do the tour of the EOC and we do that on one meeting that way.
The EOC, what's that?
The emergency operations center.
Oh, gotcha,
At the police
gotcha.
station.
I gotcha.
That's what we were gonna do when we tried to schedule before,
Yeah.
so.
All right.
Okay.
all right, any other future events? Yes, ma'am.
I would like very much to have a report on the vacant building, or the status of the vacant buildings. Let's see, we passed the ordinance, but what's happened since we passed the ordinance on the vacant buildings and also on the landlord-tenant deal that we also passed? If we could have a report on that. Who all has signed up, who all is not paid their, registration, that kind of thing. Please, sir.
I was thinking I put that in your last report last week, maybe I did. But I'll see, I'll put over the new agenda. And remember, we're not meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, you want to come back in 2 weeks?
No. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Absolutely.